Alarming number of fires are ravaging much of California. Many have had to evacuate. If you're in the West and have room to spare, contact Bridget O'Connor, our Kingdom Emergency Response Spreadsheet-wielding Coordination Officer. You can find her at facebook.com/westkingdom. Leave a note there and she'll be sure to get with you and get your information. And thank you for all the help that you can give.
Hi, and welcome to Between Two Peers, a live stream show where the hosts invite a guest from around the known world to answer your pressing questions about life, the universe, and everything. This week is sponsored by Glenlivet, because our guest likes to taste the land from where the drink is made. Manischewitz, because he doesn't want to taste anything else for the rest of the night. I am one half of your epic host duo, Tulia Alori. I am a Laurel from the West Kingdom, and I've been in the SCA for about 2/3 of my life now, and I show no signs of quitting, so apparently it's gone from hobby to lifestyle for me. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce my beautiful co-host, Helga, aka Sir Danger Muppet.
That was totally me having the feed live, by the way, and not muting it, which I lecture everybody about. So I'm your other host, Sir Danger Muppet, who just totally did a tech fail that I lecture all of our guests about beforehand. So I am a knight, a pelican, and a royal peer from the West Kingdom, and I'm feeling sassy tonight, so y'all better watch out.
It's the Wimple.
It is the Wimples always make me like super sassy because they make me fussy as fuck.
Oh yeah.
So because I'm just like, does it make my neck look fat? Oh my god. So without further ado, tonight our guest is Cormac Mor, the voice of war. And I've got to actually ask in your intro, I need you to address that because I want to know how you got your nickname.
Absolutely. Good evening, known world. This is Cormac Mor, the voice of the war, serving Crown and Kingdom by waking you up every single morning in soothing, dulcet tones. I did cry at Great Western War, at Estrella, at Petrera War, at An Tir West War, at Penzik. Really made myself a name basically wherever I went with exactly the same shtick over and over. I needed something that rhymed with more, and it was at the war, so I declared myself the voice of the war, and it stuck.
So tell us a little bit about your SCA history.
Sure. Well, I started in 2002. I had been fencing in college, and the professor announced that she was retiring, and we were sort of left high and dry. We looked around Long Beach. I was at Cal State Long Beach for my sins, and looked around town, didn't find anyone who would take us on because we weren't already at Olympic level. And I said, hey, I think there's some crazy folk back in Bakersfield who dress up funny and fence in the park. I'm going to check it out, and if it's something cool, I'll bring it back with me. So I did. I went and found the local group, the Shire, now Barony of Wintermist, and went back down to Leondomere and founded Noe College.
It's called No.
Yes, well, it was College of the Wilds, and the Herald said no, because it wasn't documentable. And they said, well, you could be Wild College. And we went, no, that's not us. And then we submitted Lyceum Littoris Longi, which is Latin for Lyceum or Garden of the Long Beach. We were trying for college, but the Herald said no. And then we said, well, how about College of No. We went, okay, well, no it is, I guess.
I like it.
And the Herald said yes. So there.
I like the fact that that's kind of like Caid's whole thing is like just, you know, how Caid got the name Caid, and there's all those different versions of that story about how it became known as Caid, and it seems to track right with that experience as well.
Basically, yeah. Yeah, at one point we were desperate to get our armory registered because beautiful heraldry. Sable 3 laurel wreaths or. Classic, beautiful, simple heraldry, but you can't register heraldry to a branch without a name. So every time the name got kicked back, so did the armory. So we were looking through names, just try get a name, doesn't matter which name. And we pulled up the 2 stodgiest English names that we could find, Etherington and Stinchcombe. And before we found No as a surname, we could have been Etherington College or Stinchcombe College or Stinchcombe Etherington College.
That would have been good. Like Stinchcombe under wood something. Yeah, that actually would have worked. Well, and I guess that kind of also feeds into, was that your first experience, I guess, in the SCA, or one of your earliest experiences in the SCA, with the College of Heralds, which ends up becoming a kind of a thing that you have done?
It definitely became a thing. My first experience with the college was actually trying to submit a name and a device, which went through pretty quickly and pretty easily. So I was really struggling with the fact that I wasn't able to get this name through with the college. But I had been fascinated with heraldry since before I joined the SCA. Ever since I was little, I found the pageantry interesting. I found the design and the process of design to be something that I really wanted to do. And so when I found that that was something you could do in the SCA, I immediately jumped at the chance.
I love it.
I later became Principal Herald of Caid, and then Wreath King of Arms for the Society, which I just stepped down from.
That's going to be where we're going to run into our first question, because, yeah, you just stepped down as a pretty big deal. But I guess before we get into the question, we got to do the drinking game.
Yeah, I should remind people of the drinking game momentarily, and then we can get to that. I don't know. I think you might have to drink for that one.
Okay, fair enough.
So the drinking game, a quick reminder. Drink anytime when a guest or host uses a non-SCA name when referring to somebody else on the show. When someone says, before I was a peer. When someone says, in my kingdom. When somebody says, when I last reigned. That one pretty much screws me. When somebody calls for a soapbox, or somebody mentions or uses the term spite sprinkles. So, and with that, we're ready to go into the questions.
So that was the first question we have, actually comes from me, and it has to do with your recent tenure as Wreath King of Arms. So yes. You recently stepped down as the Society's Wreath King of Arms. What does the Wreath King of Arms do? What's it like wearing the badass crown for the Wreath King of Arms? Did you ever get any crown envy from any sitting crown during your tenure? So for those who don't know, the Wreath King of Arms has this glorious crown. It is stunning. But
actually, no. The Wreath King of Arms is a deputy of Laurel, Sovereign of Arms, who is currently Juliana de Luna, who is out of Spokane in An Tir. She is an absolutely fantastic woman, and she has the absolutely fabulous crown that is perfectly documentable. It is stylized on the King of Arms crowns of old. It is gold-plated. It is...
I see. I was mistaken in my thinking that you all got fancy crowns. You, Wreath and Pelican and Sovereign. So my bad. Damn.
No, it's not a problem. I did have a crown, actually, because if if one sovereign has a crown, we all have to have crowns. My counterpart, Alice McIntosh, had an arts and crafts crown that was put together with cardboard and stickers and glitter that someone put together for her, whereas I was bestowed with a cheese crown made by the same people who make the cheese foam wedge hats. Apparently they make all sorts of hats. So I was bestowed a cheese crown, which I then passed off to my successor. However, there are little spheres on top of each of the points, so I consider it to be a baronial coronet. So I actually have my own cheese crown, my cheese baronial coronet, which I will bring out from time to time when I'm being particularly silly.
I see that actually is that's better than what I'm saying. But actually, tell us what the Wreath King of Arms does.
Sure. So under Laurel, who is in charge of all things heraldic, there are 2 main deputies. There's Pelican, who is in charge of names, and there's Wreath, who's in charge of armory. So when you submit armory, it goes through the process. It goes through your local herald, and then to kingdom commentary, and then to society commentary. And then at the end of that, there's a meeting where a whole bunch of senior heralds get together and read the commentary. And then I, as Wreath, would decide whether it passed, whether it was returned for further work, or whether it was pended for further commentary, or more recently for redraw, which is a new policy that I put in place last year that I'm particularly proud of. Then I would write the decision up. It would be proofed. All the proofers would tell me that I was full of shit, and then I would go back and change the decision a little bit, just to make sure that it's clear that no, I am indeed not full of shit. And then once it gets proofed, it goes to publication, and it goes out. So I'm in charge of the pretty pictures, or was until July in charge of the pretty pictures.
Yeah, that's right. You just stepped down. And so anyone with any heraldry that has been registered in the last, 2 years, 3 years?
3 years.
3 years. It had to go through you, right?
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, cool. I learned something new. 2 things new. 1, you don't get a cool crown with that office, except for the cheese crown sounds pretty rad. And then 2, you're responsible for all the cool stuff that goes on with this fun stuff. So, Helga, would you like to do the next question?
I was about to say, we gave me a name that I'm never going to be able to pronounce.
I'll do it. Okay. Baron Constantia.
See, there we go. Like, Baron Constantia. Ask him about being the benevolent dictator of the College of Heralds Imaginary.
Of course, they asked about that. So, along with Baron Constance, I served as a benevolent dictator of arms for the College of Heralds Imaginary, which is a group of like-minded heralds who put on shenanigans. They do all sorts of fun things at Known World Heraldic and Scrabble Symposium. They cause heraldic pranks to occur. And they tend to be the masterminds these days behind the April 1st letters of intent, or letters of misintent is what we usually call them. This is when names that can't really be registered, such as, for example, Malcolm Reynolds, get submitted as a joke, along with fun armory. The names are perfectly documentable to period, and some of them get very silly. And the armory either is documentable to period or is a really fun image that we put together last minute to go with the name. So, for example, there for the name Malcolm Reynolds, there was I think it was Sable, a Firefly proper, and it was, of course, the Firefly class ship Serenity.
So every April 1st, my apprentice is Asa, Mistress Asa now, and she's also my coworker and also Helga's coworker, because the law firm we work for is very incestuous, very SCA-centric. But every April 1st, there's an entire reading of all the ridiculous names and devices that are jokingly being submitted for approval, and it is a highlight of my. Otherwise, I don't really care for April Fool's pranks, but this one's like pretty fun. So keep your eyes peeled.
It's done in jest. Our last year, or my last year as Wreath this past April, the Sovereigns actually put together our own letter, but it was, instead of submissions, it was proposals and changes to rules.
Right.
So, for example, on the name side, we put a quota for each kingdom on Norse and Gaelic names. And if you submitted something past the quota, then we would spin the wheel of names and we would choose which culture you were going to get.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
I have an Italian name. I'm safe. For now. Okay, so next question. We're going to go into some more general questions. Those were specifically submitted for you. This next one comes from Calbard. What first sparked your love for heraldry? And then we get to answer what first attracted you to your thing. In our case, costuming or arts or horseback riding horses.
All right, sounds good. Well, I've always been fascinated with the Arthurian mythos, which is something I actually went to school to study. I almost got a master's degree in Arthurian literature. But with that, of course, comes the heraldry and the pageantry that comes with it, and trying to identify each of the knights by their armory. And from there, it expanded. I joined the Scottish Games when I was in high school, because my girlfriend was head of the local society. And so I was getting into genealogy, which also has heraldry, and it's just carried from there.
That's cool. Now, do you do graphic design mundanely, or is that just kind of a hobby of yours?
I did graphic design when I was working for Kaiser Permanente. As a side bit, other duties as assigned while I was still a sysadmin. But I had learned Photoshop in college, and when you have the skills, you use the skills. So
True. Yeah, I know that we've geeked out, over the last year or so that we've actually known each other online, just on design stuff. And I've always admired your eye for design. So
thank
you've got
you.
a very good eye. Helga, would you like to answer?
Oh man, there's so many things that I geek out on in the SCA. So like my initial geek out is heavy fighting, because well, what little girl doesn't want to be the fucking knight that rescues herself and beats all the boys with a stick? Like I never played like, you know how you play like the childhood games where you're like somebody's the person that gets rescued and somebody's the person that like does the rescuing. I was strong enough that I could tie up the boys and make them my rescued princess. Like I was a strong little stubborn child. And I think that kind of carried over into, adulthood and things. And we're not going down that rabbit hole. However, I always played like the person doing the rescuing or even the bad guy, amusingly enough. Like I was a very good bad guy. I'd come up with some complex plots how to beat the good guys. And I won a lot. Also, that may be because I'm mean. But so like when I got introduced to the SCA, I wasn't old enough to heavy fight yet. However, I'm good enough to fake an ID.
Don't do this at home, kids.
Yeah, don't do this at home, kids.
Wait a minute, you never told me this.
Oh yeah, no, I had a fake ID so I could work in the construction industry, and that'll pass in the SCA super easy.
Do not be like Helga.
I've worked and paid taxes since I was 14, so yeah. Don't be like me, kids. Really, don't be like me. But I got into fighting, and then I got to actually really try to be the thing I wanted to be. Also, at that point, I was doing Olympic level fencing, and my instructor had a wreck with me. Sadly, I'm the reason why you always make sure you have a punch-proof coat. And in his recovery, I found heavy fighting, and at that point, I was growing up in a very small town. There was only like 5 of us doing fencing and then going out and competing. And so when we lost our instructor, like the whole group just vanished. And he ended up moving, and so it never restarted. And at that point, I was in heavy fighting, and I'm just like, and sold. And so that's how I found my geek in the SCA. Also, I'm an equestrian, which means if there's horses, I will figure out how to put my butt on one and go compete on one, like whatever venue.
Baby Ninja just called phrasing. Are we still doing phrasing?
When it's a really bad one, and I think that might count as a really bad one.
It kind of is bad. So for me, sparked my love.
Was it also a retiring fencing coach?
What's that?
Was it also a retiring fencing coach? We're 2 for 3 so far.
No. No, in this case, I think it was my mom. I think I got to blame my mother for like everything in my life. And my mother and I have a very good relationship. Fact is, the problem is she knows me really, really well. And so since the time I was a little kid, like very little, and I had my own ideas about what I wanted to do, my mother would always be like, no, you want to do this thing. And I would always be like, no, I hate that thing. I want to do this thing, which I totally was convinced I wanted to do. But my mother was like, no, seriously, though, this thing. And then she would drag me kicking and screaming to do the thing. And I'd find out, oh, she was right all along. This is exactly the thing I wanted to do. And costuming was kind of like that. I mean, growing up in my mother sews amazing stuff, like, professional level tailor, seamstress. And I learned to sew from her. And but for like since day one, the moment I came out into this world, my mother was dressing me up in costumes. And like, it was just any excuse to put a costume on the baby, or any excuse to put a costume on the toddler, or any excuse to put a costume on the kid. And so I grew up with like not just Halloween. I mean, we're talking like 4th of July, Easter, Halloween, Christmas, like every couple of months there was like a costume, not just an outfit, but like a costume that went with it. And it was just my mother having fun. Like I was a little Barbie or, play doll, I think, in that regard to her. So I always was comfortable with the idea of wearing costumes. And I, about age 12, I cued into history. And I kind of was like, I think it was right around the time that in 6th grade, they do world history. And so I was learning about the Middle Ages and Renaissance and all that stuff. And that's when my mother took me to my first Ren Fair, which I was convinced I was going to hate. And she was completely right. I totally loved it. Like no turning back. And then I would start drawing since I loved art. And I was a prolific drawer as a kid. I would constantly sketchbooks, just pages and pages of drawings. I'd start designing costumes. And so when I started studying history, started looking at my Encyclopedia Britannica set from like 1973 that my mother had, turned to like the costume. There's like a whole costume section in it. And it's these all very basic, Victorianized drawings that are in it of kind of every epoch's costume, Middle Ages costume and the Renaissance costume and the 18th century costume and the Victorian costume. And I started really getting geeked out about the historical costumes. And my mom just really was like, hey, kid, if you're into this, like, let's take you to the library. Let's check out all the books. Let's find out as much as we can, which in like 1990 was not as easy as it is today with the internet. It was a far more limited landscape of information when it came to historical costuming. But bit by bit, and being introduced to the Renaissance Fair, and then a few years later finding the SCA, I kind of found this real passion for historical costume. And right when I joined the SCA, and then instead of once a year with the Ren Fair, you have to plan a costume, and then you have a whole year to make that costume, for that space of like couple of weeks or whatever that the Ren Fair is going on. The SCA, there's an event like every other weekend or whatever, and I wanted a new costume every single event that we went to. So my mother was like, "You have to learn how to sew. I'm not going to sew any of this. I got a day job. I can't sit home and sew these outfits for you." So she taught me to sew, and ever since then, that's literally been kind of my obsession since I was about 15. Well, 12 for the costume, just design aspect, but sewing since I was 15. Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay.
Nice.
So, long-winded way of getting around to that. Helga, I think the next question is...
We all come into the SCA with like some hard geekage, and it's one of the things that I love about the SCA is because we have a really broad umbrella. We have such a way to pull people into the group and say, look, you have your niche and you have your space, and we will make it for you, and like let's geek out about this, and like I'll share my geek, you share your geek, and our geeks don't have to match to be worthy.
Yeah, right. We all celebrate every geek.
Yep. All right, we ready for the next one?
Let's do this.
This one comes from His Highness Soren of Awertha. How are you dealing with the digital, or ESCA, since lockdown and actual SCA being canceled?
So the funny thing about the College of Arms is that we never stopped. We didn't have courts to run at first because people really didn't know what to do, but sure enough, the Heralds were at the forefront of getting courts back online. We had events that we were already running, meetings that we were holding on a monthly basis on electronic submissions, or on an electronic basis. All of my meetings as Wreath were online. All of my correspondence was online. So I really didn't have much of a break, to be perfectly honest. The only thing that was different was I wasn't getting distracted from that work by going to weekend events and seeing people, which was sad, but sure enough, we were able to get that going as well. And I don't believe that the Known World Heraldic and Scrabble Symposium was the forefront of events happening online, but it was one of the first major ones to occur. So I've had no real problem with it. In fact, I've found that I've been able to do more on the ESCA than I have been when I'm not being distracted trying to get ready for a weekend event.
I identify with that, actually. It's been hard not getting to get the physical interaction, but I am a person who has lived the majority of her day-to-day life online since the internet was a thing in my house. About the same time I entered the SCA was when we got AOL, and that was the end of it for me. It was very seminal. That, like, 1990, what was it, 1993? It was a really seminal time in my life. But I've been very highly active online since 1993, and so having to really only interact with the SCA online, I don't think it's changed my perception terribly much. I think what has changed a lot is the, just the ubiquity and the popularity and everybody being on Facebook, and Facebook itself is the thing I struggle with more than being online. Like, because I've been online on BBS's, LiveJournal, different types of bulletin board services over the decades, and none of them had quite the widespread use that Facebook does. And so they were always kind of off to the side. It was always a thing that was off to the edges of my of the broader experience of the SCA. And now it being the only thing that we can do and it having to go through Facebook, it's a real, I don't know, I have a lot of feelings about it. And I worked in social media marketing for a long time, so I drank the Kool-Aid on that pretty hardcore, and then ran screaming from it. So I still have this approach avoidance conflict when it comes to, like, Facebook specifically, and then how we interact on it as a society and how we relate to one another. It's like being telepathic, and you suddenly, that's not the superpower you really want, because we're seeing that with social media. Just broadcasting your thoughts out into the world. And I've been guilty of this, absolutely been guilty of this, where I just have a feeling and I'm like, I got feels about a thing, and I just fire off this post on Facebook, and suddenly everybody's like, oh my God, Tulia's suicidal, or oh my God, Tulia's pissed off at me, or, all these big things. And I'm like, no, I just had a thought and I wanted to express it. But there's no nuance on Facebook. So there being that being the only way that we can interact with each other is a challenge to kind of filter where there's no filters, and realize that we're just literally spewing brain shit out into the world constantly through Facebook. So I just got the over 5 minutes note from Carius, so I'm going to shut up now. Hey, Helga, how would you like to answer this question?
So this is very likely to turn into a soapbox. For y'all's knowledge, there is no such thing as the ESCA. We are the SCA. The internet influences how we interact, but for the most part, the majority of us have been on the internet for the last 20 goddamn years. Okay? It's not a hard concept. The SCA and the internet, or social media, or whatever, same thing. Still the SCA. The only thing that and I actually think by separating it out into the ESCA versus the SCA, what we have is we're actually creating a social divide, and we're creating an interaction divide that people can then use as a weaponized thing to excuse behaviors or hold people to different behaviors. And this is the reason why I do not believe there is a difference. Who I am online is exactly who I am at events, anything else like that. And if I try to say, oh, well, that was just my online personality, fucking bullshit. Shove that. The internet is actually something that gives us a deeper look into people's souls, because they believe this keyboard is a protective mechanism to guard them from their darkest, most inner thoughts that they then jerk off onto the keyboard with. And then expect to be excused away. And that's not actually how it is. And so this is my weird soapbox. The SCA is the SCA. And no matter what platform we are interacting on, You should be peer-like, you should be kind, and you should learn how to interact on that platform. And yes, when it is down in text, you can interpret it through your own hurts, scars, feelings, emotional state, or anything else like that. And if you can remember that, you're actually going to read somebody's message with more kindness and more ability to try to hear what they're saying than if you read it and you're like, oh, this person insulted me. No, maybe that person's keyboard writing just blows. So ask them what they meant. Give them a second chance. And so to roundabout to this, now that I've had my weird little soapbox, which I'm going to drink for, the pandemic has been the best and worst thing for the online environment in the SCA ever. Same time. One coin, two sides. It has been the worst thing because we have a bunch of people stuck in the box at home, bored out of their minds and angry that they can't go do their thing. And so now they're putting their emotions to the keyboard and assuming that it will be excused away. Well, congratulations. It is the 21st century, 22nd century, whatever. It is.
That's not what he meant by that question.
Well, you know, I'm going to go off on this rant anyways. So, it is now to the point where, it's now to the point where we're now looking at how we're having to develop the platform of the SCA and communicate on it. So, it's been great in the fact that we're learning who the actual nasty people are and who the people are that can actually still be peers online. Also, a ton of online content. The Inter-Kingdom Anthropology has been super cool. There is no borders. There is no getting in your car right now and having to drive 16 hours to go interact with somebody that's from a completely different kingdom. Like, woot. Like, great. I can go interact with somebody from Drakenwald, like, for free. 0 time investment besides sitting in front of my computer. And so I'm hoping that we actually adopt this more, that we continue to share all of our knowledge on such a cool platform and make the SCA better. Do I want to still meet in person? Oh, hell yes. Like, I want to go hit my friends with sticks. I want to hang out and drink. I want to bullshit around a fire. But I want the knowledge base that we are now developing to continue to develop. Because it's so cool and it's so academic. And if we let it continue to develop, I think the SCA overall is going to see a huge growth phase.
I do have one thing to add to that. I think you're absolutely right that this was the point of eruption where we get to see the best and worst. But it's been building for the better part of 2 decades. When we started getting onto the internet, when we weren't just meeting in person, people got to see what we were like outside of garb. When we weren't, we didn't have our best faces on. And that just kept building and building and building. And that divide of who you are in the SCA versus who you are online kept being divided out because we didn't just have just the SCA. And because everyone was still on their best behavior because they were face-to-face, they were able to keep the rest of the stuff contained and then just sort of vent it online. But now, because there is only online, it's all venting because that's all anybody knows how to do anymore. And everyone is frustrated and everyone is sad. And
I would say that's all you really can do. You're kind of helpless right now. You can't go out unless you want to worry about catching, a really awful disease. So you're real limited in who you get to interact with. 1 or 2 human beings, if you're lucky. And it is frustrating, and that's the world it's the way that human beings are not designed to function. And I think it is absolutely eating away at people, which is probably due, or a genesis for a lot of the real wacky shit we're seeing coming out of SCA folk online. I think we're all just angry and frustrated and feeling helpless, and we can extend that much compassion to one another. But not everyone does that. So,
yeah,
and
also I realized my perspective. Sorry.
See what. Go ahead, please. It's your show.
No, you go. Your guest. You go first.
And what you said before, this is the honor that people talk about when there's no one around. We get to see who people really are, and some of them are amazing, and some of them have problems that they need to work through because they haven't quite gotten it yet. And I think this is again, like you said, the best and worst thing to ever happen to the SCA.
Yeah. And so my one little thing is I realize that I also have a really odd perspective. I know what it's like to be punched in the face for saying stupid shit. And so I just always imagine that before hitting enter. Like, I've been in fist fights that have not been polite or pretty or nice, and I have not won every single one of them. And some fist fights are polite, by the way, Baby Ninja. I'm sorry, there's redneck rules to fist fights. You don't fucking pull hair, you don't gouge eyes, you don't hit somebody in the groin, okay? Beyond that, it's like guy rules of just knock them until they're down, and then you go from there, okay? But for real. And so that's actually something that I try to use and I don't know, find something that you can relate to. Find the moment in time somebody's hurt you with their words or has crossed a line and you've either suffered for it or seen somebody else suffer for it, and use that thought process before you hit enter, actually. Like, use compassion in your typing. Understand that what you mean to say when you're typing may not come through. So look at it through the point of view of somebody else. And that will help you a lot and save you a lot of heartache. And then when you screw up, fucking own it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the hardest part, is people owning whatever. And again, I go back to compassion. I'm like, there's compassion and empathy. Not a heck of a lot of it going around these days. And I get it. I know there's a lot of psychological reasons why, and we can get into that. But we won't, because it's not the topic of our show. But it does play out heavily online. And, the I'm right, you're wrong, suck it, fuck you. And nuance, there's no nuance anymore. It is frustrating, but I think it's because we all feel really helpless. So try to have a little compassion, try to have a little, humility, own up to your fuck ups. We all vent online thinking we're just venting and then freak our friends out because they think that we're literally about to, jump off the nearest bridge or whatever. And literally just venting. I swear to God.
Guess
all right.
I'll die.
It's not a cry for help, I swear. I am a person with massive feels. I am a short person with a lot of feelings. It's very hard to contain all of them in this short little body. So, anyway, should we move on to the next one?
We should probably move on to the next question.
Okay.
So, I did hear some rustling in the background.
Oh.
The Lady of the Lake has arrived.
Yay.
Oh. From the Lady of the Lake. This is very important. What is your most often used movie quote?
Oh my gosh, I have so many.
I don't even know where to go with that.
You can think about it if you want to
I'll pass for now. Come back to me.
Oh my God. So anything from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure for sure. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. Absolutely. Anything from Mean Girls. She doesn't even go here. Like, get in the car, loser.
I saw that movie.
What's that? You finally watched it? I did as well. Yeah, no, it's a great movie. It is fucking great. Rachel McAdams is kind of like my favorite person ever, even though she plays the bad person in that movie. I love her and everything that she's in. Let's see. What other movie things? God, I don't know. Like, so I grew up in a family that was very movie, pop culture, heavy centric. So stuff just comes out of my face without me really realizing that I'm saying it half the time. But Star Wars quotes, Star Trek quotes, Princess Bride quotes, Labyrinth quotes. Like, God, I mean, name anything that came out from like 1975 to like 1995, and I probably quote it. So. Oh, Monty Python quotes. Monty Python quotes for sure. Oh my God, so many Monty Python quotes. Cormac or Helga? Which one are you?
Okay, so the most quotable movie ever is Tombstone.
Oh God, it's so good.
I will tell you that movie has gotten me more action at SCA events than anything else like that. One, fighting. You're a daisy if you do.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
Amusingly enough, it's a misquote. It's actually, I'll be your hucklebearer, because a hucklebearer is the person that carries your coffin.
You're
So,
right.
however, it got mispronounced and is now "I'll be your huckleberry."
There's a whole bunch of things like that, like quotes like that. We just watched something recently where we're like, "Oh, sweep the leg, Johnny." It's not actually sweep the leg, Johnny. It's just sweep the leg.
Yeah.
Or Luke, I'm your father.
Yeah, Luke, I'm your father is another one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's actually one of my favorite ones is like, "Oh, I'm your huckleberry." And also most people don't understand what it means. Like they think it's like, "Oh, cool, it's time to rumble." No, it's "I'll fucking end your life and show up to your funeral, asshole." So like
my favorite from that is, "Well, bye." It's just beautiful and perfect.
One of the things that like Hans and I quoted each other all the time is "You're not wearing a bustle." How lewd.
Dude.
And that is like the signal for like it's time to get the fuck out of the party, by the way. That is the weird signal of like we're done now. It's time to go not wear a bustle.
Yeah.
So I quote that movie all the time. All the fucking time.
In the YouTube comment feed, Dame Selene was kind enough to remind me that just simply due to the amount of shtick that I do with Morning Cry, it is the quote from Good Morning Vietnam repurposed for my own needs, which of course it is.
How many people have seen Good Morning Vietnam right now? Because I have. It's a great movie. You should watch it. It's actually was probably Robin Williams' first like serious role. I think. I think before that, he just, very early in that like breakout. I'm a serious actor. Yeah. All right.
We're ready to go to the heavy hitter.
Well, I guess we're going to break first because we've gotten movie sign. Also, I quote relentlessly MST3K when I say movie sign when we go to break.
So before that,
are you live now, Baby Ninja? So Baby Ninja would like to state something for the record.
All right, here comes the voice from on high.
All right, so I was told by a good friend to quote this for Cormac. Doot doot magic flute.
Uh-oh.
Yes. I play Dungeons and Dragons online with a fair number of SCA folks, and one of my recent campaigns, I played a bard named Bree, who had a magic flute, pipes of hunting actually, and she would do it on her magic flute and use all the different magics, and it was wonderful.
All right, are we going to commercial? Awesome. 2, 1.
Strongford Arts makes Celtic, Anglo-Saxon, and Viking jewelry and metalcraft, forged from bronze or fine silver using traditional methods and tools. Items are based on extant examples found in museums and private collections. Roybird McNeil also teaches the methods he uses in making his art via live feed on his Facebook page at facebook.com/strongfordart. Treat yourself and shop at strongfordltd.etsy.com.
Hey, you! Yeah, you! What are you doing? Do you like swords? Of course you do! You should check out my channel, The Wandering Sword Project. Who am I? Mr. S. Why? Because I like swords. I also like things that are sharp, shiny, and strong. I also like spears. So make sure to check out The Wandering Sword, where we have other sharp weapons and other medieval endeavors to explore. Now back to Araya and the Between Two Peers show. You better be enjoying yourself, because I pity the fool who doesn't. And cut!
Strongford Arts makes Celtic, Anglo-Saxon, and Viking jewelry and metalcraft, forged from bronze or fine silver using traditional methods and tools. Items are based on extant examples found in museums and private collections. Roybird McNeil also teaches the methods he uses in making his art via live feed on his Facebook page at facebook.com/strongfordart. Treat yourself and shop at strongfordltd.etsy.com.
Hey, you! Yeah, you! What are you doing? Do you like swords? Of course you do! You should check out my channel, The Wandering Sword Project. Who am I? Mr. S. Why? Because I like swords. I also like things that are sharp, shiny, and strong. I also like spears. So make sure to check out The Wandering Sword, where we have other sharp weapons and other medieval endeavors to explore. Now back to Araya and the Between Two Piers show. You better be enjoying yourself, because I pity the fool who doesn't. And cut.
So we just saw the Ask the Knights art challenge entries, and we're losing our little furry minds about them right now. It's so great.
For reals. And also, I'm 100% buying that Knight's belt. Like, I am contacting her about that, and I'm buying that shit. That's amazing.
All of them are perfect, but I actually have to say the Teen Girl Squad style.
Oh, yeah.
I am a huge early 2000s on the internet nerd. So anything that is a reference for like Homestar Runner or anything like that. And I think that was Calbards. That was Calbards. And it was amazing because it's very like Teen Squad and I'm what's her face. It's great. So
that's amazing.
I want to direct everyone's attention to Cormac's amazing coronet.
So this is not the same as the crown of Wreath King of Arms. That is a separate one that just happens to look exactly the same because it's made by the same company.
Hey, it's baronial, okay?
It very clearly, the pearls, this is a baronial coronet.
And since there are no height restrictions...
I'm going to mute myself. Sorry, guys.
Since there are no height restrictions in the Western Kingdoms, not just the West, Caid, West, and An Tir, it is perfectly within regulation. And I kind of want you to wear it all the time, every day. So.
It does get a little warm though because it's foam and it's right up against the skin.
So you said that's the same company that did the cheese heads, like the Wisconsin whatever team.
Yep.
Green Bay Packers, right?
Yep. The cheese wedge hats. They also have tiaras for Tiara Tuesday if that's your thing. They've got bowlers and cowboy hats and visors and all sorts of different things.
Wow.
As well as accessories like footballs. I think they have a bag or something. It's very weird.
Huh. So I'm intrigued by the tiaras. Not like a girl has too many tiaras. So.
and they're just as ridiculously tall as this. It's just it comes down on the sides.
Yeah, perfectly into that. It sounds amazing. So yeah, actually, if you don't mind, messaging me the link. I may at some point drunk order that. Possibly tonight. I don't know. Who knows?
I'll have to dig it up.
All right. Yeah, actually, in the comments, we were talking about like sumptuary laws and the Western kingdoms not having a height regulation on coronets. You find this in kingdoms east of the West Coast where we are. And I can't necessarily name which ones, so I'm not going to. Anstiora East, Baby Ninja says. But there is a height regulation on coronets on that side of the country, I guess, known world, whatever that is. But here in the West Kingdom, you can have the biggest, most ridiculous coronet ever, as long as it doesn't have strawberry leaves or crenellations or any kind of peerage-related regalia or symbol that you don't currently possess. It doesn't matter. You can have like literally the world's most ridiculously huge coronet. You don't even have to have an AOA. You can just show up and be like, stop with this giant. In fact, I have a good friend who did that. A good friend of mine is who had won I can't remember what exactly honor he had won, but he is active in the drag community in the Bay Area and has this amazing fucking tiara that is about, 1.5 feet tall. And he is perfectly within his rights to wear that in the SCA because he earned it. God damn it. So
there you go. Yeah, I know that Atenvelt has some height restriction. There was one court baron who was also a bard, and there was a restriction on the height, I think up to 2 inches, but there was nothing about width. And so he has points that go out 3 feet in every direction with little bells on it. It's amazing.
I love malicious compliance. I love malicious compliance. Anyway.
Okay, so sorry about that, guys. I hope I didn't kill anybody's eardrum with the smoke alarm that just went off. Because, if we have good cameras and good mics, we might as well have my house smoke alarm go off.
Cool. It's very smoky outside right now. FYI, the entire West Coast is on fire, so I can actually understand why it would turn on.
I just had that moment of like, why? Why? We're having good tech night. Like, why?
We didn't hear it. We didn't hear it. All that work we did with noise suppression worked.
Yeah, didn't even hear it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we've been working on the noise suppression angle. And yeah, I didn't know. All I know is I saw Helga get up and walk away. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a thing. And then
I hit mute real fast because it went like, bleep, and I was just like, mute, anger, stop.
All right, so we're going to get back to the topic at hand.
Okay, so are we ready for this?
Yeah, this was a heavy-hitting question. So we've
I've got my super serious hat on, so time to do the thing.
Okay, so you got a very serious hat on.
Buckle in for this ride, because this one's probably going to be a ride.
This is the one that we messaged you earlier. We weren't going to throw you under that bus, but you said you wanted this question. So, from Baroness Morgan, the SCA has a missing stair problem. While major movement is occurring to make our game safer, there are still those who would rather protect the illusion at the cost of victim safety. What would you do to make our investigation and R&D process more considerate to the victims?
So the framing of the question is really broad, but the question itself is very specific. What would I do culturally? There's so many things that can be done, but specifically about the investigation, the R&D process, that is something that is concrete that can be addressed. In 2016, I witnessed a sexual assault of a dear friend of mine, and he was immediately banished. He was a landed baron, and he was stripped of his position, and he was immediately banished from the society. And it took another 2.5 years and two society seneschals to complete the R&D process because the investigation was dropped. Not by any official action, just by oops. And since then, there have been some changes that have been made. It's not just the Society Seneschal calling people up anymore. There's an actual team of investigators, which is really useful, especially when a Society Seneschal can only ever represent one particular kind of demographic. And it's so frequently been men that looking, for example, at sexual assault cases is a little bit more difficult. So already building a team that does the investigation that can relate to the victims on some level is a good step, but it needs to be taken farther, because it's my understanding that even now the team is falling down. There aren't as many people as there are complaints, especially in the last year or so. And so that needs to be expanded a lot more. There needs to be a better understanding of what needs to be documented and have a process of passing that documentation on, so that the victims don't have to keep reliving the same event over and over when giving testimony to the Kingdom Seneschal, and then the Society Seneschal, and then the new Society Seneschal, and then the Society Seneschal's deputy for investigation, and then the team, when all they want to do is make sure it never happens again. And
I'm not going to jump.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
I'll just say one last thing, and I'll pass the baton. Approaching the investigation from the understanding that the victim is a victim rather than a complainant is incredibly important, especially when it's sensitive things like actual sexual assault, as opposed to, oh, this guy's just being mean. If it goes beyond the grievance procedure, then there is a victim that needs to be treated with care.
I was just going to interject that, shoot, and I lost my train of thought because ADHD brain just engaged. If I remember what it is, I'll bring it up again. But Helga, go ahead.
All right. So broad premise. Also, I'm going to say that premise carries some emotional weight. And so we didn't edit this down, actually, because this question, we almost kept this question. We're doing an episode of charged questions, or basically like one-sided questions, because we've been sent in a couple of them, and we almost kept this one for that because of the lead-in to it, because the lead-in to it has definitely an emotional experience behind it. For anybody that has done some like mediation work or anything else like that, there's some heavy there. But to answer the question, what would I do to make our investigation and R&D process more considerate to the victims, is legal training for all seneschals, paid by the society. Actually, like, you're a seneschal, awesome. You should have some basic idea of what legal ramifications there are in every state that you're in. I think that should be paid by the society. They should have an understanding of it. It should be free to anybody that is a seneschal and or a reporting body. I think that seneschals should be mandatory reporters, actually.
Oh, 100%.
Like, just like teachers, you should be mandatory reporters, and you should receive all of that training for free. And I realize that is a cost. And if I had to pay $10 an extra a year in my membership to make sure that happened, believe me, I would in a fucking heartbeat. I think that databasing would be really huge. So that once a report goes in, that database is accessible. Like, you have an encrypted database that goes along. So this would help with reporting for repeated offenses, because we have people that many of our missing stare problems are repeated minor offenses that get excused at that time. But if you looked at their history overall in the SCA, you'd be like, motherfucker, this is a repeat offender. Why has nobody ever talked to him? Everybody drink, having been queen, I'll speak to the fact that getting past reports is very, very hard. There are some legal reasons behind this, deaffirmation, everything else like that, but we don't have a set up system to look for repeated behavior. We don't have something that protects the victims of a said missing stare, whether it's assault, whether it's, being belligerent about something or anything else like that. And the main thing that I would do with our R&D system is I would make it many more tiers, actually. So your first offense isn't actually like, cool, your first offense is excused. Great. Like, conversation, there's a mediation conversation, a third party's brought in, like, this is just dealt with, cool, great. That's a grievance. A repeated offense turns into, sweet, you're out for 6 months. Like, there it is. Little slap on the wrist. 6 months. 6 months in the SCA is nothing compared to the longevity of this society. But for 6 months, you're not welcome at events. And I'm not putting that on the royalty, because right now that 6 month offense is put on the royalty. Nope, sorry, that's going to go at a society level. Like, cool, great. It's not the royalty targeting you. It's actually the organization that is taking ownership of, like, 6 months, a year, 2 years. Like, sweet, all your titles are removed. Like, cool, great. You can re-earn your titles, but all your titles, gone, motherfucker. And so I would actually put a many more tiered system in there that is very open and public. So when it happens, cool, there's a list. Here's why the offenses happen. You don't actually have to name any of the victims or anything else like that. But, like, these are the offenses. And when somebody becomes a repeat offender, remove repeat offenders. If they're not learning, because there's a little slap on the wrist, there's a medium slap on the wrist, and then, like, hey, by the way, you're losing your titles and all your rights to the society. If you really want to turn around, like, here's all the mediation processes. Cool, piece of fuck out. Because right now we basically have 0 to nuke, and we have no tracking system behind it, at least in my experience. There's no easy tracking experience in my experience. And that's, I will speak to this as a victim of something that happened within the SCA, where I pulled a knife on a dude to stop a sexual assault. All the way to being a royal who was dealing with a sexual assault case and some mundane laws that were broken outside of the society, and then it was brought into the society, and shit needed to happen. And so from the entire spectrum of being the victim and the royal that had to drop a hammer, I'll tell you that if we can come up with a system that keeps us all accountable, I would much prefer having a strike or two on my card because somebody felt that they could go to the system and say, hey, look, she was drunk and got handsy, than anything else like that, because I want to know. And I want everybody in the society to feel safe. I want everybody in the society to feel like everybody's held accountable. I don't care what level you're at. I want them all to feel accountable. And I want them to feel that process is also, it goes from grievance to assault to, holy fuck, we're actually getting the police involved. And that's where I would take it, and it would take a lot of infrastructure, and it would take a lot of training, and it would take a lot of work. But if I could snap my fingers and do it, 100%, that's what I would do.
I can't say anything differently or anything really to add between what Cormac and Helga both said. Mainly, it's just that, I guess, to synthesize everything, it's that the SCA has the SCA has a shit ton of, I mean, we're talking at the corporate level, we're talking like the SCA Inc. level, a lot of gaps in how these things are cataloged or tracked or submitted for consideration at the highest levels in the society. The vast majority, and I'm not even thinking that I'm actually over exaggerating this, the vast majority of these instances probably don't even make it up to that level. They probably get dropped at the local level. They don't even make it to kingdom. They get dropped at the, baronial level or the shire level or the, just the one-on-one level. And again, it is an issue where we need better tracking. We need better accountability, and we need teeth behind our punishments or our, how we come down on the people that we are able to come down on for whatever reason. There's not a lot of teeth in it. And it used to be the level 1 banishment was like banishment from the presence of the crown. Level 2 banishment was banishment for the duration of the reign. Level 3 was banishment that was kind of, upheld from reign to reign. And then you had R&D. And that system's gone away. It's not that system anymore. But now there's almost like 0 to R&D. And there's this huge gap in between the instance where something happens and the R&D process that goes through at the societal level. So I don't know. I can't really rehash what they've said far more eloquently than I have, but I say that I'm in complete agreement.
I do have one other thing that I need to say, and it's that there needs to be a push society-wide away from the idea that the absolute worst thing that could happen to a person is that someone calls them something bad. Is that people know that they did something or were accused of something bad. Because that has been the approach this entire time. Like, we don't want to make this an official report because Duke so-and-so is an honorable man and we don't want to besmirch his honor. Like, we have witnesses that says he besmirched his own honor. The worst thing that can happen to someone is not that he gets called out on his bullshit. It's the bullshit he just did over here 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I have personal experience with that kind of, we don't want to ruffle feathers, or we don't want to cause an issue. And on both sides, as somebody who was victimized and somebody who happened to be friends with the person who was being accused of victimizer. And it's not a good system. It's not a good system.
Mm-hmm. So Cormac, I've got the one to build off of you, and then we should probably all drink because I have a feel like this one was definitely a soapbox for all of us. What I hope it was a good soapbox. Is as peers, when we are called something, when we are called racist, when we are said, "Hey, you sexually assaulted me," and I'm going to use all the extremes in a moment, and I'm going to apply them to myself. When we are called racist, when we're called, that we sexually assaulted somebody, that we caused somebody harm or anything else like that, the first thing should not be to fight for our honor. How we defend our honor is by owning our mistakes and giving the victim a voice. Yeah. That is actual honor. Honor is facing the hard things and taking it with grace and dignity so that the people that we affect in this world can also be given power to face it. And if we are not willing to do that, you don't actually have honor, you have ego.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've hidden behind that. The SCA has created an entire system hierarchy of, I must protect my honor and then my buddy's honor. And that's not going to fly anymore. It isn't. And what we're seeing now is trying to correct for that. And I do think that's happening. I do think that there is now a pull into we're going to have to try and correct for this systemic good old boy system that we've had in place for 55 years. And, I'm going to stick around and see how it plays out.
And I'm going to fight to make it better.
Exactly.
And I'm going to continue to be a voice for the voiceless.
Yep. That's the job of peers. And I mean, this society legit saved my life, and I'll die to make it better.
Same.
So, with that, shall we go to less heavy conversations?
Yes, please. Yeah. Who's for ghosts?
All right.
So the next question comes from Radar, who I just actually want to give a shout out. And here's some of the cool things. Between Two Peers, Askanites, the Murder of Dukes, all these shows have non-SCA followers. And I just want to give a huge shout out to our non-SCA followers that are starting to reach out and ask questions and be a part of the shows, because one of the things that I'm hoping that comes out of all the online content, going back to question number 2, for all of us, is I'm actually hoping that the online content brings more people in. And so far, we're starting to see that. We're starting to see interaction from non-SCA members sending in questions, watching the shows, and giving us props. So keep doing it, shows, because it's working and it's super cool. All right, so now that I've hit my geek moment.
So Radar, who actually is a dear friend of mine and neighbor. Hey, neighbor. She's, and I'm to sing my praises a little bit about Radar because even though she's not in the SCA, she's been a huge part of my life for almost 20 years. We met online. And we met online because we both loved costuming. And so I was part of the historical costuming community, and she was part of the sci-fi fantasy fandom community in the Bay Area. And we connected through mutual friends on LiveJournal, again, the magical world of LiveJournal back in the early 2000s. And we've been good friends ever since. Sisters in cocktails. We're twins, quote unquote twins. We have the same birthday, but a year apart. I'm older. We're both short. We're the same size. But Radar's been a huge part of my life for almost 20 years. So she's always been kind of SCA adjacent, and she's always expressed interest in the SCA. But I think through, just because we're also locked down and we can only interact with each other online, she's found this weird little SCA space, probably through proximity to me, social proximity to me. But I love that she is so engaged, and I hope that once this is over, we will actually see her beautiful face at an event. So, Radar, dear Radar, asked this really good question. So she said,
when working on your garb, art, etc., what's your favorite music, movies, or podcasts to listen to?
Excellent question.
That is a really good question. For movies, it's Lord of the Rings Extended Edition, hands down. Also, Brother Cadfile series, as well as The Office, I'll put on. If I don't have the ability to have TV on, then I'll probably put on either My Brother and Me, or the Adventure Zone podcasts. Or every once in a while, I'll do 99% Invisible, or my old standby is always Welcome to Night Vale.
I guess I'm next, right? So I'm notorious for I only work to murder podcasts. And I think I've mentioned on the show before that my other hobby is true crime. So my favorite true crime podcast to sew to when I need to do hand sewing, and I can just put it on the background and just, on my headphones and just zone out, is Case File. And it's no frills. There's no none of this kind of commentary, like the let's give you editorialized jerk offiness about this murder thing that happened. It's just the straight facts, minimal amount of anything else other than the facts, ma'am. It's by an anonymous presenter. We don't know his name. He's been nicknamed Casey for Case File. He's from Australia. And one of the things I really appreciate about it is that he very much is interested in letting the stories of the victims speak for themselves. And so it's not about his personality. It's about him just presenting the facts of the case. And I have been listening to that podcast since the first season. And I think it's in season 5, 6 now. It's great. Absolutely. If you're into true crime, download Case File. You will not be disappointed. It's one of the few Patreons I still subscribe to. It's that good. Other than that, I've been getting really into You Must Remember This, which is kind of the opposite part of the historical podcast thing. It's all about the early first century of Hollywood, and all of the kind of ins and outs and stories about those first 100 years of Hollywood. And it's really interesting. So those are my 2 votes or my 2 recommendations. And if I'm not listening to podcasts, I'm watching Forensic Files on repeat. Helga?
So I watch NCIS or CSI Las Vegas. I binged watched all of Supernatural. So the pandemic started. I hit season 5 and I stared at the TV a lot while I was trying to get projects done because season 5 is just a rehash of our lives right now.
Yeah.
That show is way too accurate. So right now I'm binge watching CSI Las Vegas because they're the best character building. So I off and on NCIS because NCIS gets a little pretentious sometimes and repetitive, and so I'm gonna binge it and then I back off of it and then I binge it again. And then beyond that, I just kind of find random shows. So I did Cursed on Netflix. That show is terrible.
Wanting to watch it. Oh, I've got such high hopes.
Hard no.
Really?
No. Save yourself the 12 hours of your life. It's terrible.
Is it really? I had such high hopes. So for those who
No,
don't
like,
know, Cursed.
Netflix produced shows either really, really good or motherfucking trash. So Cursed falls into the Twilight branch for me because there is all the lead up, none of the sex, and terrible acting and emotional fucking coping skills. That's like, if you cannot adult in a show, I'm not gonna fucking give you a good rating. And she does not adult the entire time. A little bit of communication and maybe some forethought, most of those problems would have been fucking solved. That's all I can say
about that. I had high hopes for that one. That one's about, it's kind of the Arthurian legend from the Lady of the Lake's point of view, basically.
It fucks the Arthurian legend in the ass terribly and screws the timeline worse than a cheap porn.
Well, that's sad. Cool.
Sorry.
Okay, I appreciate. Actually, Helga, would you mind writing a review of it for my other project, Frockflix? Because
I'll totally write a review for it because the armor is also terrible, and I will completely go off on that. And Frisians aren't fucking war horses, you goddamn noobs.
I love you so hard. Sorry. That was a great question. Who does not love trashy TV while you're sewing or working on a project? I can't I can't watch anything that I haven't seen 100 times before while I'm working because I'm focusing on what I'm doing, like sewing, and having to look up all the time and watch plot and all that stuff. I've got to track all that and sew.
I got called on a soapbox.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I had really high hopes for Cursed. Damn it. Because Thorfinn had watched the first episode and he said, yeah, it's okay. It wasn't terrible. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put that in my, my little, I'm going to watch that later box. And damn it.
Only goes downhill. I'll watch it with you drunk as fuck and you can just listen to me rant.
Are you was that live, Baby Ninja? Okay. Baby Ninja
has a rant on all the Arthurian legends. Oh, I have a question for the show that I need to add in now of which character out of the Arthurian legends are you?
Yeah, because I can talk all day about the Arthurian legends.
You know what? Let's hold. We will have a special episode. We'll do a special episode on the Arthurian legends at a future date.
So actually, can I suggest we should do the Arthurian legends and Lord of the Rings in the same episode because that's basically the SCA's jerk off birth child.
Yes, sure, fine, whatever. That we gotta not do it at this show though because we're already over an hour, and I think we're only 6 questions in. So,
all right, so are we ready for the next question?
Yes.
Yes,
it's me. Duke Ulf asks, as a peer, how do you maintain decorum when all you want to do is tell someone to take a long walk off a short pier? Not pier, P-E-E-R, but P-I-E-R.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. I learned fairly early on in my life that there are certain ways of saying things where you can tell people exactly how you feel about them and they'll thank you for it. I'm not that good at it yet, but I do know the words. It's just that the tone of voice, I'm not quite. It's the whole, oh, bless your heart sort of thing.
Honey.
And, thank you very much for your opinion. We will take it under advisement.
I love that. Take it under advisement. That is such the fuck you.
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, what an interesting opinion you shared with me. Thank you so much for your honesty and bravery.
Earlier today, I actually mentioned to somebody that I sent so many emails to various crowns over the million years I've been in the SCA, and I've gotten responses back that are always, we will take that under advisement. So I've always taken that as the SCA version of this is going into the electronic round file. But yeah.
All right, so you ready for this one?
Bring it.
Yeah, sure.
So I am a supreme jackass. If people have not figured that out watching 22 episodes of this show, I'm not sure how to help you. So how you deal with somebody, especially a peer or somebody in power, and remain with decorum when you want to tell them to go fucking suck their own dick. Or the more polite version, take a long walk off a short pier.
I'm a short peer.
Yeah, I was about to say, we can just lay you flat and they've got to walk off you, and it's just going to be right off a cliff. Is how I actually typically tend to do that is when I'm having an emotional reaction to somebody, is I engage them in mediation and debate about the topic. So I try to not join them in the emotional investment of the conversation and them being a dickhead. I will try to engage them in actual conversation, because then you can attempt to reverse the behavior, or you can attempt to address the behavior. So if somebody's being a shithead, like, give me an example and I can totally try to use it.
An example of
Just give me an example of a peer being a shithead.
Oh my God, name any peer being a shithead. Like, do I have to name specific?
Basically, the thing you're doing will never get you a peerage. Yeah. Which I actually, amusingly enough, I got that a bunch, and I still get that with the shield painting. Is I will engage them in why. Instead of emotionally reacting to them and saying, well, I'm just gonna double down and work harder. That could be my internal spite sprinkle self drink. But what I will try to do is I actually try to engage them and say, like, hey, cool, why do you feel this way? Like, because most peers and most people are very used to, when they tell you you can't do something, getting basically this in return, and then it turns into an argument. So instead, I'm going to engage them. I'm going to ask them why. So cool, why isn't this going to earn me a peerage? Like, maybe I'm actually in the wrong. But also, maybe just maybe, by actually asking them, they'll think about the process. I actually use this same process with angry unpeers. Like, when they hit that feel owed stage, I'll ask them why. Like, cool, so why do you feel that you should be a peer? And I'll engage the conversation. And so when a peer, and it's the same, it's actually amusing enough, it's the same conversation. That conversation is the same line, two different sides of, like, why is this thought process? What fear is going on? How does this fear apply to me? How does this bias apply to me? Are you addressing your bias? And you go from there, because one of the things that, if we continue, I'm going to soapbox this. If we continue to treat conversation like we're on some drama-based show where Kim Kardashian's ass is in our face and we're trying to, get the public to hit or, follow us and be like, oh my God, you have to watch this episode, which is fucking bullshit. If we treat every conversation like this, we're going to go nowhere. You actually have to engage and do the super boring bullshit and learn why they're reacting that way. Otherwise, you're never going to understand the person in front of you. You're never going to understand why you're reacting to them. Take the boring road, take the mediation road, and actually learn about the person in front of you and learn why they're doing this. And engage in the conversation. Stop being some fucking teen bullshit jerk-off drama with everybody's responses. And also, by the way, if you realize that you're being the teen jerk-off drama, maybe you should own that shit. And go from there. And if you engage in the boring conversation of why and actually listen to them, maybe you'll change their mind or you will understand better. There you go. Sorry. I'm apparently full of it tonight.
I love you. I love you so much. This is why this is such a great show.
I didn't mean to soapbox that one. I actually meant to answer that one super short and succinct, and then I was just like,
you have the best of intentions, and that's what I likes about you. So, okay. My answer to this is something I learned before I joined the SCA. So I found Ren Fair, or my mother dragged me to Ren Fair when I was 12. And I took to it like a fish to water. And shortly thereafter, I discovered a publication that is was a Ren Fair publication called The Renaissance Shopper. And it was this little, the newspaper type paper, but it's like cheaper than newspaper type paper. It was like that. It was about like 16 pages, so like 8 by 14 or whatever, stapled through the printed, of this really cheap newsprint. And it was filled with some of the most amazing content. And I searched the internet for it. I'm sure somewhere in my mother's basement, the old copies still exist. I've just got to go dig them out at some point. But one of the best things about it was that there was a bit of an SCA overlap with it, a little bit, not like huge amounts. And that's kind of actually where I first found out about the SCA, was through this publication, The Renaissance Shopper. But one of the things that they had was an editorial column by a guy named Ira Puge, who I think might have actually been in the SCA. I can't verify it, but all sorts of random ass wisdom was dispensed in this editorial. It was beautiful. And one of the things he said in one of these editorials it just has stuck with me for the last like 30 years. And that's, when you meet somebody who's being an asshole, smile, nod, and dismiss them as unworthy. And so I always have this mentality where I run into somebody who's being a jackass about whatever, and I just, and done. Like, that's been my approach to that. So that's how I maintain decorum, I guess. Smile, nod, and dismiss them as unworthy. I should make a t-shirt like that, actually, for merch. Speaking of merch, do we want to talk about the merch?
Okay, so I actually kept my merch. I didn't stick it to my computer yet. We are going to be releasing merch, by the way, because spite sprinkles are a thing.
When did you get that? When did you get that?
Okay, I'm putting it on my laptop afterwards.
But I haven't even gotten my order yet. My order has not come in. Anyway.
Yeah. So the lovely Stevie did a couple different designs for us.
Viscountess Sophia of the
which I should probably drink over that. But she did some amazing artwork for us. So you can now get Spite Sprinkle leggings. You can get Spite Sprinkles coffee cups, stickers. You can also get Between Two Peers merch. And so this is a real thing. And what all the funds from this are going to go back into the show. So making sure that we've got better tech. Our tech crew has invested so much money into making this show go that I have a feeling we're just going to be like shuffling all the profits towards them for a while to make sure that they're covered. And so if you would like to get Between Two Peers merch, we will be posting the links on the Facebooks and the Discords because I've got to say it like I'm from, oh God, the show just went out of my head.
Are you talking about Letterkenny?
Yep, Letterkenny. Thank you. And so it is a real thing. So I recommend get your stickers, get your shirts, get your coffee mugs, and share your spite sprinkles with the world.
You can actually go right now, if you wish, to redbubble.com and search for Between Two Peers, and that's two with the number 2, Between number 2 Peers. And our merch should come up, and you should be able to find all of the stuff that we have currently available. And we're making more things available as we go. So do that.
All right, quick point of order. Given the number of times that the phrase spite sprinkles has been mentioned in this post, do we have to drain our cups now?
Oh, I'm fucked.
Drink a bunch.
Oh, you're a bad man for that choice.
Top, though, Cormac. All right. So
Cormac, you're a delight.
Let's move on to the next question. We're at an hour and a half, and I know nobody's got anything going on in this world, so we might as well just go for all we're worth. But this next one, Helga?
So this next one comes from Bjorn of the North Seas of Caid, who is a motherfucking delight also.
And will be a future guest on this show.
Yep. I can actually go look up the date when we're done with this question, but yes, he is going to be a guest on the show.
Yeah, he's going to be a couple weeks.
As someone who has flourished in separate kingdoms, what traditions do you miss from your old kingdom?
I don't know about flourished in the new kingdom. I mean, they haven't kicked me out yet. I miss day tourneys. For all that they were incredibly stressful because there was always one every weekend to go to, I miss seeing all of my friends in a fairly low-stakes environment that doesn't cost all that much, where I can go, show up at 9 o'clock, be gone by 6, and be in bed by 8. Or, I never go to bed at 8, but I'm at least at home by then. An Tir is fucking huge. It is insanely large, and in order to get to anything, unless it's like a literal local event in one of the tribaronial events that's being held, you've got to drive 5-6 hours, and you're camping or you're in a hotel room. Either way, it's going to cost a lot more money. There's a whole bunch of anxiety and stress that come with having to completely uproot yourself overnight. And I miss just seeing all my friends, and literally all of my friends, because everyone has to drive 2 hours wherever, to every single event, every weekend. And especially during COVID, I have never missed it more.
Nice. All right, so part 2 of this question is for all of us. So again, you get first dibs. And it helps if I change to the correct tab. What would you import to your current kingdom?
So, Caid has one of the best understandings of the structure and pace of court, and especially the frugality of time. It goes along with the having day events. If you start court at 10 and no one gets to fight until it's done, then court is done by 11 o'clock or 12 at the latest, because fighting has to be done by 6 so that we can be off site by 7 before they kick us out or charge us another $100. Again, with the lack of push for time, courts in An Tir are notoriously slow-paced and long, and there's a whole bunch of really big gaps in it. So the tradition of court efficiency and having heralds who are well-skilled and trained in pacing court coming in and helping the baronage and the royalty, and in this case the court coordinator, which is a position in An Tir which is nowhere else in the known world, better pace the court to keep it moving and keep it flowing, so that you don't have 3 and 4 hour long courts, or at the first 12th night that I ever attended in An Tir, a 13-hour coronation court.
That's a long time.
Wait,
it's a very long time.
We diss the West Kingdom for their long-ass courts, but that way outstrips. Yeah. 6 hours, no, 3, usually 3. 3 is average, but oh my god.
So, Drink, when I reigned, we had an hour timer.
Mm-hmm. I know, I was her head of court for her last reign.
I like how Cormac's just gone to the bottle. We've killed both of his drinks at this point.
I emptied my glass. What do you want?
So you get to answer that first, Miss Sassy Seamstress.
Okay, well, so I've never lived in any other kingdom other than the West. I visited a precious few other kingdoms, and it's hard for me because I've not spent a heck of a lot of time in any other kingdom. Probably the other kingdom I spent the most time in, An Tir, which is really kind of very similar to the West. So it doesn't really. It's hard for me. You know what? I'm going to pass this off. If I think of something, I will tag back in. Helga, save me.
So, from Caid and also Aidenvelt, I would take the tradition of peerage meetings not being at Crown.
Oh my gosh, no! Yes!
Miss Sassy, would you like to take that and run?
I will, yes! Well, I mean, I'm just going to say that's an actually very good point. And An Tir also. I believe, has this culture of regional peerage meetings, throughout the year, and things are decided, basically outside of the crowns. In the West Kingdom, right? Crown tournaments, which are incredibly stressful, have to be packed into a weekend event, and you got to prepare yourself for Sunday morning. You're going to be getting up at the ass crack of dawn to go to as many peerage meetings as you are a peer in that order. And as much as people like to say, oh, they'll only be an hour, they always go over. And you have to be off site by 2 p.m. And you're still in this peerage meeting that's going over until 1:30. And you've still got to tear down your shit and get the fuck off site. It is awful. I wish the West Kingdom would get the idea of having regional peerage councils away from major events. That would make my life infinitely better. Yes, yeah. Thank you, Helga, for bringing that up.
You're welcome. So I will choose a different one.
Actually, can I jump in real quick?
Mm.
So in An Tir, the regional meetings happen usually at the local level outside of events, but the kingdom level peerage meetings happen at basically every crown event. And it's it's just as bad as you're describing. And as someone who comes from Caid, where at least for the Laurels and Pelicans, I know that the Knights meet more often, but the Laurels and Pelicans meet on a biennial basis, twice a year, once every reign, to have what they consider to be a business meeting where all of the work is done and then handed to the crown, who's usually in attendance. That's not held at an event at all. Yeah. And so the idea of taking time out of an event, which again, in Caid mind, is only so long, you have to fit everything into it, is insane. And it drives me up the same wall that you're up in the West.
Oh, we're up 300 feet in a redwood right now. Yeah. Helga.
Okay, so because I started Sassy's, I will choose a different one. And this is actually one of my favorite traditions, and this is a very specific tradition. I have been very spoiled to attend Knights Council in Edenvelt a couple times, and I am a baby knight. I am still wet behind the ears. We're just gonna go with that. And when I went to their crown council, because they hold a crown council, so list gets done, prince and princess, king and queen, all the knights go off. No candidate is discussed. They discuss the honor and chivalry in the list and deal with any problems right then and there. So if somebody was thick for the day, if somebody missed a shot, if there was a unbelt that did not comport themselves well, that night is there. The problem is discussed. They have an open level of communication about it, and it is insanely cool. It is very, very cool, and also it's one of the reasons why, for as much as Edenvelt has the reputation of being the Aiden thugs and everything else like that, every list that I have attended, there has been insanely clean, because they call each other on it right after. There is direct accountability about their actions in the list right afterwards. And that is a thing where it is openly discussed. And it is not discussed oh my God, you did this thing. It is discussed as hey, it looks like you missed this shot. This was my perspective of it. Let's discuss this. Was this calibration? Was this an armor failure? Was this somebody's stick was dead? Was it what happened here? Let's make sure that we're all accountable in this, because honor's a thing. And so I hold the Edenvelt Chivalry Council in very high regard, because they have some very high-end conversations with each other. And they may not like each other. And that's one of the things in the SCA that we all pretend everybody gets along. Not fucking true. We are way too big of a society for everybody to think that everybody's made of fucking gold and floats on little clouds. Doesn't work that way.
FYI, I hate Araya. I mean, shit, I used her Monday name.
Why do you hate me for this?
I know, because you were saying not everybody gets along. I was being facetious. It was a joke, you ding dong.
You just wanted us to drink. And so that is something that I hold very near and dear, and I really wish that we could bring to the West, because I think it would be where I believe that the West lists are very honorable. We tend to have those conversations on the sidelines, and it isn't addressed as a council. And I think that if all councils brought that up, if every single council actually adopted that practice of addressing each other's like missteps, well, they're still missteps and not programmed behaviors, I think that overall the society would be better. And I think that that would be a huge step forward in how we deal with each other's personality quirks, how we deal with issues on the field, how we deal with issues with students in general. And so that's something that I try to bring to the table as much as possible. But if I could just like click download, would 100% do.
I assume that those discussions in the council are things that couldn't have been resolved on the field.
So if it wasn't resolved on the field, that's when it's brought up.
Got it.
And so,
put on armor, so
it's also one of the things that it does is it's outside perception, because between the two fighters it may be resolved, but outside perception is not resolved. So now you have the group of every knight that was at the event dealing with the outside perception. So you don't get the like, well, okay, cool, it was resolved on the field between the two fighters, but I still think he was a jackass and missed this shot. Now every knight is there saying like, cool, let's discuss this. And I think that what that does is it deals with the rumor mill a little bit, because now you have everybody on the same page. There was an open conversation about something that went on. So even if the fighters resolved it, it can still come up of like, hey, this feels like this was an honor thing on the field where you're like, oh, no, it's fine. I don't want to call you on this right now. But like in that council, it was like, look, I really felt like you missed that shot, but I wasn't willing to have you give up that win just in case, because I wasn't quite sure. And so it can happen as a deeper conversation that then goes out to the populace, because now all the knights are on the same page of like, no, like we all discussed that, like it's good, like they were right, or maybe shit, we discovered this person's calibration is off, so now we're addressing it. Like now we're taking active steps towards making sure we're all as a group maintaining each other's honor.
See, that's awesome, because if the chivalry notice it, then the non-chivalry are probably noticing it as well. I haven't seen many crown lists where people have been incredibly thick, but when you see it, especially as a non-knight where you don't feel that you can say anything about it, it hurts to see people that you know are supposed to be chivalrous either unable or unwilling to take shots.
Yeah. And that's something that I'll speak. So speaking as a fighter that has some nerve damage, so I was kicked in the face by a horse when I was 14 years old, and it did some really bad. I've got some scarring around the basically like my spinal column is scarred in my brain or in my neck, and occasionally when I'm super stressed out, I don't register pain. Like legitimately, that part of my brain is broken, and so I've actually had list fights where I very much so heavily rely on Hans to be like, no, like legitimately that shot was no good. I need you to understand. Like I've died to shots in lists that where I was just like, I'm just going to assume they hit me. Like right. I'm just going to assume that touched me. And I've also had the reverse of that conversation where that person was like, so hey, I fucking nuked you with that. And I'm like, my bad. I'm sorry. Let me fall over now. But I think that their entire Knights Council is based around that premise of like, you may miss something. Like at some point we're going to miss something. We're going to be adrenaline dumped, or we're going to have a bad day, or we're going to be thinking about something else. Pain is really, really relative. Like the human brain in pain and pleasure, same part of the brain, also functions very oddly depending on stress levels, dopamine levels, everything else like that. And so I think that what they do actually addresses all the side effects of like, are you freaked out that you're in your first crown list? Oh my God. And so I think that that's a very open and honest way of dealing with it.
That's amazing.
I just totally got the 5-minute warning.
Oh, you finally got it. I get it all the time.
I've been ranty tonight. I'm really sorry, guys. I hope it's been entertaining.
Well, we're actually down to the last question. All right, this comes from Anonymous. Sex and the SCA. Tell us all the things we need to know, but wouldn't think to ask.
Before you answer, this is an episode 1 question that spurred the giant rant out of me that apparently went a little bit viral. So please feel free to go the fuck off.
Also, we asked this of our queen.
Okay.
100% we asked this to the Queen of the West.
Okay.
Like, all ding-dongs.
Sex in the SCA. For starters, it's never meaningless. It always has meaning. Secondly, if you are a peer and you're thinking about taking your associate to bed, get another associate. You never fuck your student. Ever, 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 ever. Don't do it. If you are an associate and you're thinking of taking your peer to bed, you should probably get another peer. Do not fuck your teacher. It will fuck everything up. Number 4, sex always has meaning. Always. If you think that you're having sex with someone that it's just meaningless sex. It's not. It will never be meaningless sex because we are a group that is founded on honor and on chivalry, and sex is always going to mean something. Even if it means that your partner has a different idea of sex doesn't mean anything than you do, or your idea of what sex means outside of the context of the bedroom is something different than what your partner is. It will mean something. There will always be consequences. Sometimes the consequences are good. Other times the consequences are not. Finally, and this is going to be my last wrap up because I think that we could all rant on this, even if you've had plenty of experience in previous episodes. If you are someone who is sleeping with someone of a lower rank, station, respect, or otherwise standing than you need to be acutely aware of the power dynamic that's going on. If you are the crown and you think that you're just having sex with someone and it's wonderfully, it's entirely mutually consensual and there's absolutely no problem with it, and you didn't already have a relationship with that person going into crown tourney, you're probably wrong. Because they're not sleeping with you, the person, their friend, the whatever. They're sleeping with the crown, or the baronage, or the knight, or the pelican, or the mod, or the laurel, or any of those things. And that power dynamic is incredibly easy to abuse. So just don't. Unless you have fully negotiated in advance that everyone's on board with the same thing, and it is knowledgeable, enthusiastic, and above all, capable consent, then just do not do it. Have a nice cuddle, and wake up in the morning with everybody's clothes still on, and still be friends in the morning and not have any problems.
Helga?
Shit, am I supposed to follow up with like a hilarious rant to this? Because
If you want.
you just nailed that. So in the first episode, I went off on always wash your balls.
I just got a text message, I won't say from whom, who said, wet wipes in the tent.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I want to know who now.
I'll tell you.
I didn't realize we were talking about. I didn't realize we were going on practicalities of sex.
Would you like to re-answer the question as the practicalities of sex in the SCA?
No, it can be whatever. No, it's whatever you want to know about. So it says, tell us all the things we need to know, but we wouldn't think to ask. It doesn't say practicalities. It could be whatever it is. It could be about the esoteric aspects or the practical aspects. Would you like to address the practical aspects, Helga?
I'm super curious what Cormac has to answer about the practical aspects, though.
Wet wipes are important. If you have an extra tarp, put it down. Canvas is much thinner than you think it is.
Oh, for sure. Oh, my God.
If you have a wash basin, use it before and after. If you don't have a wash basin, get one.
Baby wipes.
Yeah.
Baby wipes are your mobile wash basin. That's
Yeah. I mean, if we have to be historically accurate, then yes.
Yeah.
Wash basin.
I'm going to go with prep, motherfuckers. Prep is sexy. Consent is sexy. Prep is also sexy. If I walk into a tent thinking I'm gonna bang and there's some baby wipes and or a wash basin or a towel to put down, that's motherfucking hot. If I walk into there and you're like, I'm unprepared for this shit and you don't know where your condoms are, I'm sorry, you fucking noob. I'm gonna go back to hunting. There's some shit that, like, as an adult, you should know. Baby wipes are a godsend. Don't get the scented ones because people could have allergies. Always carry latex and non-latex condoms because, again, you're a motherfucking adult. You should know there's latex allergies. Putting a towel down saves your sheets so nobody has to sleep in a wet spot. Also, you should always ask her permission to come.
That's a really good one.
Like,
also, can I throw you under the bus, Helga, and just say, if you need non-latex condoms, find Helga.
Okay, so legitimately, in my tent, I always have what I consider the teenage go pack. So I did consent courses and I did like basically adult sex education courses for a very long time, where my adult friends would bring their other friends. They didn't have like sex experience, and we would have the embarrassing conversations. We would have the conversations where, like, one of my friends was a 30-year-old virgin, like legitimately 30 years old. He was very awkward at the time, everything else like that. But also he'd never had these conversations nor known the resources. And so in my tent, there is always a pack of latex condoms. There's always a pack of non-latex condoms. There is lube. There is baby wipes. There's everything else that you should have and occasionally forget. And if you need to, like, legitimately, if you have a teenager, if you have somebody that doesn't know what they're doing or anything else like that, you can send them to me. I will sit down. I will have the safe, sex-sane, consensual conversation, and also make sure that they walk away with the conversation armed to, like, do the deed. Because I think that sex should be a very open conversation and it should be a very honest conversation. And Western, like, mundane Western society is very shameful about sex, which is bullshit. And so if you have somebody that you are uncomfortable having the conversation with, you can send them to me and I will have the conversation. I don't care how fucking awkward they are. Like, I give no fucks. I think that information should be easily available, and also safety should be easily available. And so send them my way. I will make sure that they are safe and sane and well armed to continue on their endeavors and not bring something home.
Yeah. I'm at a risk of, like, this was a lighthearted question and, like, kind of being a bit of a damper on the lightheartedness, but I do want to impress upon anyone listening, and this goes back to, like, power dynamics in the SCA. If somebody is higher ranking than you or older than you or has some sort of a hold socially over you, you have every right to say no.
Yep.
Every right to say no. Do not feel you have no choice and you have to say yes because they're a baron or a peer or whatever. If you're not into it, you can say no, and it takes a lot of courage. And I know, having been a young woman in the SCA, that the amount of courage it takes to say no, it is indescribably hard when you're young and you don't encounter these kind of situations and you've been conditioned to be a people pleaser and you want this person who outranks you or is older than you to like you and not say bad things about you, and so you may consent to something that you're not comfortable with. Just know that you actually have the ability and the power, and you, if you're not okay with it, to say no. And
I will totally vouch for both Sassy and myself. If you say no
Yes.
and they keep pushing, come find us, because we're the fucking evil bitch females. I want to know, like, I give no fucks. I will fly in the face of Duke so-and-so and just be like, would you like to suck my bigger, thicker dick?
I'm not afraid of your fucking titles, asshole. But and I get this when you're a new person or you're young and you're just kind of like, I don't even know what to do. And I feel like I'm in a situation where I have to say yes. If I can't, then, scream, yell, do what you got to do to get out of it. Honestly, really, for sure, do that. So many feels about this. As a 15-year-old in the SCA, had a lot of experiences where I had to be in the situation of somebody who had just a very ranking title, but I was a new person and a teenager and didn't have that title. And I felt pressured to go along with something. And I'm the sort of person, even as a 15-year-old, who would be like, you know what, fuck you, motherfucker. I'm not going to do that. But I can only and completely empathize with people in that same exact situation who feel as if they didn't have that ability to have that voice. And it's hard to just sit here and say, speak up and say no and don't, fight for yourself and all that stuff, because when you've been conditioned to not fight for yourself, or you feel that you're in a disadvantage, or you feel that you saying no will cause some sort of even just a minor drama that you don't want to deal with, that is so hard and so real. And I get it. I super get it. I still just want to say there's that you have the ability to say no. Always, always, always. You have the ability to say no. And you've got to be able to be strong and accept that that's something that, you may feel like you may get railroaded because of. But as I and Helga have always been here as advocates for that situation, if you feel that way, absolutely email us, message us on Facebook, whatever, between two peers. We will
throw somebody in the fucking
we will absolutely listen, but empower yourself. And don't feel like you have to do something just because somebody outranks you, because that's some bullshit. That is absolutely 1,000% bullshit.
Cormac, you look like you had thoughts.
Yeah. Just speaking on the other end of that power dynamic, if you are male and a male-female dynamic, if you are a peer, if you are someone who has been in the SCA longer, if there's any way in which you are who Tulia was talking about on the other end, then you need to make sure that yes is yes. No means no, doesn't even cut it anymore. Unless it is an active, enthusiastic, informed, and capable yes, please, you have to accept that it is a no and that it is a valid answer. Because this only works, and that claim that you absolutely have the right to say no and there shouldn't be any consequences, if the other end of that also says, you're right, there are no consequences. Mm-hmm. And if you hear of someone on your end of the power dynamic with someone else causing consequences, whether it's just saying, oh, she wouldn't put out, or she led me on, or any of that nonsense, fucking call them on it. Especially men. Because no fucking seriously. It's 2020. It's long past time for this nonsense to stop.
And it's one of those things where I know in my personal experience in the SCA, there's a certain amount of privilege. I was very lucky. I was incredibly lucky. I had a mother that was involved in the SCA when I was underage. I had other adults that were willing to protect me and actually came to me and said, hey, if you feel like somebody's taking advantage of you, do not be afraid to scream my name at the top of your lungs, and I will come running for wherever I am. And I will find this person and I will fuck their shit up. So I was very lucky that I had that. Not many people did have that. I want to be that person, though, to others. And I want to extend that. And I want to make sure that other people know that they're safe when I am within earshot, or if you come to me with an issue, that I will fucking listen and I will believe you and I will do my best to make sure that you're safe no matter what.
Hard fucking core. So where I thought this question was going to be sassy and weird and kind of a little fun at the end, it ended up being one of our more serious topics. And safe consensual sex is a big thing. and it's a big thing within the SCA and outside of the SCA. And I am just going to echo my co-host and our amazing guest that if you ever feel that it is not safe and sane, GTFO. Like, if you have to find one of us at a bar or anything else like that and say, hey, look, I don't feel comfortable with what's going on, never compromise yourself for the pleasure of another human being, ever. Like, like, anybody that tells you should, go fuck themselves. I'll kick them. Like, I got no problems with that. Like,
Kick them in the
and the thing is, within the SCA, we're an honor-based society. So if they decide to push, fucking kick them right in the honor button. Like, no joke. You want to fuck up a knight that is being pushy? Just be like, oh, well, you know, my honor, like, I need some space. I need to think about this, like, and everything else like that. Like, literally, just drop one of those knightly virtues and emotionally face fuck them with your boundaries. There you go. And then GTFO. Go out, go find your three friends, and get the fuck out. Because nobody should ever compromise who and what they are for somebody else's pleasure, ever.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely face fuck them with their honor. That's really good. I like it. Do we want to ask an upbeat question? I think we had like a couple of ones that were submitted. Are you hot right now? Are you?
So, my mic is hot now. Whoa, I'm really loud. I was asked to show him something as heraldic shenanigans. For those of you that know me, it's Baby Ninja. My helmet looks very much like the Shredder helmet from the old school Mutant Ninja Turtles. Cormac, I'm going to show this to you on Discord, and I will put it in the Discord. I had a friend who made me a Shredder badge that I have to go and actually submit, and this is what it looks like.
Oh, see, that's fucking hot. Yeah. So, for those who can't see it yet or who are looking at the live feed or what have you, what he just displayed was Argent, 2 piles Azure, piles enarched Azure, but that's artistic license. Yeah, if it's clear, you should absolutely submit that.
She said that the actual blazon was Argent, 2 wolves' teeth, issuant from Chief Azure, whatever that means in heraldic, because that is gibberish to me.
So yeah, normally wolves' teeth issue from the Dexter Sinister side of the shield, and usually there are 3. Yeah, if you have documentation for them issuing from Chief, absolutely submit it. And I feel really glad that I can say, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea, which I couldn't do for 3 years as Wreath. It's amazing to be freed from that bit. It's
but
like
yes.
If you're on the Supreme Court, you can't ask any casual question about the law because you might have to rule on it someday. It's the same thing for the last 3 years as Wreath. I couldn't do any consultation. I couldn't even say, yeah, that looks like a decent design. You should absolutely submit that. It was always, let me put you in contact with another herald.
This is what happens when you leave me and friends unsupervised with heraldic shenanigans and my helmet looks like Shredder.
I approve.
Okay.
Also, Naz, this is exactly why we have nice things.
Yeah. So since we were being super heavy, Cormac, I will give you the option. Would you like to do a heraldic question or another kind of off-your-cuff sexual question?
I have a heraldic question because I want to see him twitch.
Baby Ninja, you got your one.
Okay.
I mean, it would be really interesting if you could ask one that bridges the divide between the two.
Oh,
okay. I will come up with one off the cuff.
I have a perfect one. No, I have a perfect one.
All right, here we go.
Years ago, me and my friend tried to, we roped Fleeg into this, by the way, to try to get his help in blazoning this. We wanted to do a badge, the Vag badge, a vagina dentata badge.
Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted, and Fleeg told me it was not possible, was I needed it to be like a lozenge or what is it, peaked and round peaked shape. I think of it as a lozenge, but a lozenge is more of a diamond shape, but it's a rounded diamond shape.
I think more of a cartouche, I think.
Cartouche, exactly. He said it was a cartouche. I wanted it red with white teeth on the inside, and he said that was not possible because all the jaggedy teethy bits had to be on the outside, and I was like, that's just not gonna read as a vagina dentata. Sorry. So if you can blazon this for me.
So here's the trick with this. You have to understand that when you submit Armory, and this is getting a little nerdy before we get back into the sexy bits. Whenever you submit Armory, the shield shape that you put it on, whether it's the escutcheon heater shield, or the square, or it used to be a roundel, or you also have the option of submitting it on a lozenge, on a diamond pattern. The actual Armory will fill and fit whatever shape you put it on. Mm-hmm. So if you were, for example, to submit Gules a Borgia denticulata argent, which is like a Borgia embattled, but without the outer bit, so it's literally just teeth sticking out, that's why it's called denticulata. If you were to submit it on a shield shape or on a square shape, but you were to display it as if you were a member of the clergy, which is the football shape, which has points at top and bottom but curves on the sides, then it would be a red shield shape with white teeth coming out of the edges.
Love all of this. I'm
just
going to register the shit out of this immediately.
Okay, so I have one for everybody here. How would you blazon your favorite sex position?
I'm still going with the vag badge.
Oh, so for you, it's Gules a Borgia denticulata argent. Okay. For me, there's a long-running gag about improper heraldry, and you'll see, a woman with breasts exposed doing, this sort of thing and dancing. In fact, we submitted this on an April 1st LOI, and it's a woman displayed improper. But I mean, if I were to actually blazon a sex position, it would be, a human figure couchant, which is down on all fours with the arms tucked in, much like a cat, surmounted by another sagent erect.
Oh god, that's amazing. Okay, so how would you do it with just like legs displayed?
Yeah, in fact, Iosif of Loxley, back in the day, in the early days of the internet, put together an entire website with all sorts of different links, and I found a sub-thread on his website where I found improper heraldry, and there was a human woman with her legs up over near her ears, displayed much like a Melusine, the two-tailed mermaid of Starbucks fame, and it was blazoned as displayed highly improper.
I like that. Somebody said, "Say jaunt affronty." I love heraldic shenanigans so much.
Say jaunt affronty, unless it's a male, in which case it's say jaunt erect affronty.
Okay, so I've got a question, because I am not a herald. I actually have to go look up my own blazon, because I can describe it, but I'm not going to fucking be able to tell you in heraldic terms, because I'm sorry. Stickjack. How would you blazon doggy style with a little bit of choking?
Couchant? Proper?
Yeah. Well, you start with couchant. So you have the receiving partner, and then the other would be sagent erect. So you'd have the knees down and the body up. And I would probably, because it's hard to describe the arms reaching out unless you had arm extended, I would instead collar and chain the receiving partner.
Solid. I will.
This is my favorite heraldic chat ever.
For real. Sassy, what is yours? Because I'm super curious.
Mine is the vag badge. Mine's the vagina dentata. That's exactly what I want. Like, I really want vagina dentata. That's my badge. Yeah,
well,
I have a lot of anger and aggression wrapped up in my sexual identity.
We can have many conversations about this, and there's probably going to be a lot of relation.
Oh, Helga, you and I have so many conversations about this.
No, I am innocence in this group of the three of us. I am all the innocence here.
You're wearing the wimple, therefore you're innocent. I know. Bullshit.
Nope. So also I just got asked, and I'm gonna be terrible because this is our show and occasionally we can do this. So one of my very, very dear people is watching the show for one of the first times, and her name is Ziva. And this is Duke Sean's daughter, who I have known since she was very, very little. Like, I could pick her up and just carry her around under my armpit like a rag doll, which I did a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And now she is a teenager, or preteen, but she's pretty much a teenager. And she's watching this show tonight, and part of me is just like, am I being a bad influence on our youth? I am being a bad influence on our youth.
Her father knows what she's into.
And so I'm just gonna say that I absolutely love my Z, and I'm super glad that you're paying attention. I hope. Maybe
you're always welcome to come to Auntie Helga and Auntie. Now I'm your new Auntie Tulia, and with any like weird questions. But Auntie Helga has more experience with the weird questions than I do.
Yeah, I deal with a lot of weird questions. So I got you, Boo, when you have weird questions.
Speaking of sexy heraldry, we actually talk a lot about sex in the Herald's office. In fact, the first time I visited Penzic Herald's Point, people were exchanging FetLife profiles.
I'm super not shocked about any of that. You guys are the kinkiest motherfuckers ever.
But
just rules.
But just yesterday, on the SCA Heraldry chat on Facebook, there was the question about whether pizzling a charge, which is to display a phallus on it, would be offensive, and someone specifically was making tabards in it. And my response was that as long as it's not large enough to be considered sustained, or God forbid co-primary with the main charge, and the image that I contrived for this was a man in a kilt doing the caber toss. As long as it's not that big, it should probably be fine.
And just for amusement purposes, everybody can go look at every shield I made, and you'll be able to find a dick hidden somewhere.
Yeah, that's our whole thing. Hiding dicks.
It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. So with that, I think that we have had one of the most dynamic shows so far.
Yes.
Cormac, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. You have been a delight. Like,
yeah,
every show that we have, we're like, oh my god, this was like one of the best shows we've ever had. We're very, very spoiled by our guests. And tonight you spoiled us, and so I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being so open and just hilarious the entire time, from tackling the lighthearted questions down to basically talking about sexual assault within the SCA, and doing it it's relatable.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. It has been an absolute delight. As soon as I had discovered this show, I knew that I wanted to be on it, but I always thought I was not part of the Cool Kids Club and that you'd never think to ask me. But
dude,
I don't know, apparently I convinced you of something. I'm not sure.
One, we're not that cool. And two, whatever it is, you're a part of it.
Yeah, seriously. Like you're in like Flynn.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
So from there, do we have any other shows that we'd like to shout out? Cormac?
On YouTube, I want to shout out to Stelios and Lila. If you're not following that particular YouTube feed, you absolutely should. Stelios is a wonderful speaker here in An Tir. He is also known as the Real Black Panther. He and Lila have really interesting and candid conversations about the SCA. Absolutely amazing. And then it's not a show, at least not yet, but I have a website, poorhouse.com, POORE-house.com, if you want to find out more projects that I'm working on or somewhat controversial opinions that I've decided to post.
Make sure you send us that link and we will give you a shout out on the Between Two Peers page.
Yeah, and I will say I'm a big fan of his controversial opinions on his blog. They are really highly entertaining and very well thought out. So some of the things that people may not realize are being actually considered and discussed in the higher levels of the SCA, you should absolutely check out Cormac's blog for that stuff because he is talking about him and thinking about him. So,
yep.
Yeah.
So Sassy, did you want to shout out a different topic?
I will actually shout out somebody who I don't know, who does not know me. Lynn Fairchild. She has a YouTube, which is LYNN Fairchild, FAIRCHILD. And she has a costuming centered YouTube video site. I don't know what the kids call it these days. Jesus Christ. Anyway, but a lot of really interesting content about like the basics of costuming, various different things in the SCA. And I think every now and then she comes across my feed on Reddit or on Facebook, and I watch her videos, and I'm really actually like great basic information about like how to get yourself into a historically accurate or her plausible kit. Very, very useful. So yeah, Lynn Fairchild on YouTube. Definitely check her out.
Nice. And I'm actually I'm gonna shout out a show that is starting up this Saturday, Outlands Royal Tea, and it is spelled Royal Tea because they're gonna spill it. So His Majesty Bela and Her Majesty Nerissa are going to start interviewing past royalty of the Outlands, and they are going to be going over the history and basically the anthropology of the kingdom through the royalty. And so this is going to be super cool, and it is a great way to get to understand another kingdom outside of your own, and get to hear from the people that shaped it. So check them out. I'll make sure that the link is live, and it's this Saturday at 2 p.m. if I remember correctly. But like, there's a tune in. It's going to be super cool because right now is a great excuse to get to know how other kingdoms work. And like what you can then steal and apply to your kingdom, because at this point interkingdom anthropology is also applicable to your kingdom.
Exactly.
So the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remind you that merch is now live. So go buy merch and rock it, which is the weirdest thing ever to say as a show host. I just want to know that, like, I was going to try to make this bold and be like, yeah, go do this thing. I'm going to tell you it's really fucking weird that my face is on a shirt.
It's a cute face, so you should just rock it.
I think Sassy is the cutest of the two of us, so you should get a shirt and then ask her to sign it, because I just want to watch that happen.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The other thing that we're going to do is, so I'm going to ask, what was that?
I said, Jesu Christu. Sorry. I can't just say that. Yeah, I'm trying to be historically accurate, whatever. Anyway.
The other thing I'm going to shout out is we're about to do a subscriber drive. In YouTube, to get the next bandwidth up, we have to have 1,000 subscribers. Right now we've got 480 subscribers, which is super amazing, and I'm about to do like the weirdest blogger thing ever. And so we're about to put out a subscriber drive where if you get 10 of your friends to subscribe, I will buy you a merch shirt. So like, I will put my dollars down. So you want merch? Get us subscribers. Just send us 10 friends that have confirmed that they are subscribers to the web show, and I will make sure that you get a merch shirt, either Spite Sprinkles or, you know, Between Two Peers, one of the two. You can choose.
Spite Sprinkles.
Spite Sprinkles.
Spite Sprinkles
they are what sustains us.
So other than that, like, share, and follow us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, we have Dobroshka, otherwise known as Maggie the Potter, as our guest.
I don't have one of the mugs with me. God,
I'm actually going to go, Sassy, I will stop by and I will dig out one of my Maggie mugs in the trailer for you, and so we can all rock the Maggie mugs for the show.
I just have to go upstairs and grab one. I mean, it's just
okay. So either way, we're going to have Maggie the Potter or Dobroshka. She just changed her name, so like
changed her name. So we're going to be like super cool and use her real, like her new SCA name. But everyone probably knows her as Maggie the Potter, also from Maggie of Feed the Ravens.
Yeah.
This jewelry, Feed the Ravens.
I'm covered in her stuff.
Yeah.
So with that, thank you so much, Cormac, for joining us. You have been an amazing guest. We hope that you'll continue to tune in. And make sure that you continue to send in sassy comments, because holy crap, are you full of them? Oh my god, this is great.
You didn't realize what a sass monster this guy was, because it's pretty sassy.
For reals. So with that, everybody, thank you so much. Have a good evening. You are wonderful, and we'll see you next week.